If you're tired of not liking your solos and want to learn how to make your jazz lines sound better, stick around. Like you, I've struggled in the past to make my ideas in my solos sound good all of the time, not just some of the time. Level 1. Chord tones on beats 1 and 3. One of the most important things to learn is syncing strong notes to the strong beats in the measure. If you're not aware of this, if you're in 4/4, the strong beats are on 1 and 3. If you're in 3/4, the strong beat in the measure is beat 1. For most of the examples, I'll be using a simple 1-6-2-5 chord progression. Right now, our goal is to find the nearest note from where we last left off, whether it's the same chord or a different chord. And it's really helpful if you write this out on paper so you can more clearly see what your nearest note is. Remember, it's the nearest note on paper, not the nearest note that seems within reach on your guitar. Now this is the backbone of your line. As you soon will learn, you can literally play whatever you want in between those notes on beats 1 and 3, and it will sound like you're making the chord changes. Learn how to play through every song like this, and the added bonus is that you memorize the chord changes way quicker than you normally would. Level 2, quarter note scale tones between the chord tones on beats 1 and 3. This is kind of like a bass line, except when you're soloing, you don't have to worry about the root as being the first note to play. When you get to a new chord, what you want to choose is the nearest note, remember. It could be the root, it could be the third, it could be the fifth, it could be the seventh. Or, in some instances, it could be the sixth. More on that coming soon. One important thing to learn is when you're playing quarter notes, beats 2 and 4 will be your possible transition points. Transition point is when you're transitioning from one chord to the next. It can be a different note than the scale tone that you would maybe normally pick in order for it to land on a chord tone. So therefore, it could be a chromatic note. It could be a note you normally wouldn't think of playing, but it's totally fine on beats 2 and 4. And bass players think like this all the time. Level 3, eighth notes between our chord tones. Now here is where we really start to introduce the element of chromaticism. Now this is one of the reasons why I didn't create a separate level on chromatics, because you'll play more chromatic notes, notes that are outside of the scale or the key that we're in, just by the very nature of keeping our line in sync. If you're trying to keep your strong notes lined up on strong beats, you're going to have to play an outside note so that you land on your chord tone, which is 1 and 3. But don't worry, we'll get even more into chromatics in the following levels. Oh, you. Yeah, you. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video because I have something cool I want to share with you.
Are you ready?
Now this is the point where we have to start thinking more chord scales. Many times you have certainly more than one option. We're going to omit all the different options that we could have on different chords. We're just going to streamline it down simply just so I can get my points across on these main levels. Level 4, using passing tones. Here is where we start to even hear more chromaticism. You might be asking, what is a passing tone? Well, a passing tone is a note that we introduce within a scale. We're going to talk about some rules or guidelines on how to think of passing tones or how to utilize passing tones. Now, most scales are 7 notes. We're going to insert a passing tone within the 7-note scale so that it equals 8 notes in total, playing over an even number of beats. Yes, 3/4 is even. Before we begin, here are some of our rules. If a chord has a major 7 in it, first off, what you're going to do is in your mind, you're going to convert that chord to a 6 chord. So in other words, if it's a C major 7, you're going to convert that to a C6 chord. It doesn't matter if it's a major chord or a minor chord. If it has a major 7th in it, you're going to think 6 instead of 7. Now what you do is you place a passing tone between the 5th and the 6th note. Rule number 2. If a chord has a flat 7 in it, put a passing tone between the flat 7 and the root. You have a really strong sounding line that spells out a C7 chord, linear instead of. That's a very simplistic way to think of it, but that's how we're going to deal with this moving forward. Rule number 3. You can literally play any note you want to keep your line in sync, especially when transitioning to a new chord. That's usually beat 2 or beat 4 if you're thinking quarter notes, or the end of beat 2 and the end of beat 4 in 8th notes. But literally anywhere is allowed to keep your line in sync. No, not the band in sync, like in sync, like in sync. Like same time together. Level 5, play more enclosures and pickups. Pickups and enclosures fall under the same category, in my opinion. And everyone's entitled to my opinion, right? They both lead or draw you into the chord tones. Pickups can be scalar or chromatic. Think of pickups like an intro to a song, like a very small intro. I've heard jazz lore that Miles Davis said to play everything as a pickup. Now what I think he's referring to is playing into our chord tones. Enclosures create tension, and then that tension is released when you play that strong chord tone, boom, on beat 1 or 3. A really good way to practice these is on a song. You play into the chord tones on beats 1 and 3, just like we have learned so far. Oh, and just a reminder, I've created a PDF that has all the examples covered in this part 1 lesson. Included is the whole solo I played at the beginning of the video. You can download the PDF in the link I provided below. Don't forget to stay tuned for part 2 of the 9 levels of jazz improvising. We're going to learn the final graduating piece so that you can learn and study it. I provide the solo in both standard notation and tab for you. Welcome to the 9 levels of jazz improvising, part 2. As with the part 1 video, what we will be expanding on further is how to make your jazz lines sound good. We will continue with proven methods that jazz masters use to construct great solos. So stick around.
You'll get some free stuff if you stay till the end of the video.
Level 6, using triplets. Triplets have always been a big component to the language of jazz. So let's look at a couple of examples. That last example is already starting to sound more bebop, right? It sounds more like something Charlie Parker might have played. Notice how each level we get to, it starts sounding better and better. Let me know if you think these ideas are going to help you with making your jazz solos better by typing "jazz rocks."
Jazz rocks, man. You dig?
Level 7. Get more blues into your lines. I'm not saying every line, every solo has to have the blues in it, but it's great to pick and choose when to add it when you feel it's needed. If you're not sure how to get more blues into your lines, a quick way to get more blues sounds is applying the blues scales. Playing a major blues scale over chords that have a major triad works great. So that includes major 7 chords and dominant 7 chords. Similarly, you can use a minor blues scale over a minor chord. And it also works great over a dominant 7th chord, because that's what the blues is, right? You can also use the scale that you use on the 2 minor chord for the 5 chord as well. I decided to use triplets in this next example. Here's a cool idea. Play a D minor blues scale over the 2 minor 7 chord, and then superimpose a B flat minor blues scale over the 5-7 chord. Or try this. Play a G minor blues scale off the 11th on a 2 minor 7 flat 5 chord. In this case, G is the 11th of D minor 7 flat 5. And then superimpose a B flat minor blues scale over the 5-7 chord. The really cool thing is the B flat scale, the B flat blues scale, gives you all the altered notes. It gives you the flat 9, the sharp 9, the flat 5, the sharp 5, plus the flat 7. Maybe I should make a video on superimposing scales over chords. One other thing that you can try is to put more glisses, slurs, and sliding into notes. Level 8, use arpeggios.
You still using them arpeggios?
Unlike the way we were using chord tones before in part 1, which is arpeggios buried within our line, we're now going to use arpeggios more in the classic sense. Level 9. Mix it all together like a really good gumbo. Now we reached our final level, little bits of all levels combined together. I've prepared an etude for you to study and to learn, to practice. It's called Stella in a Bar Fight. You probably can figure out what song it's based off of. Stella! forget to download the PDF of all the music examples in this lesson, including the final solo, Stella in a Bar Fight, that I played at the end of this lesson. It's all written out for you, and the link is in the comment section below. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or give me suggestions on topics you would like me to cover in upcoming videos. And remember,
Jazz rocks, man. Dig it.